Right, it could be very, very difficult to follow Shelley's speech. It's very, very impressive and very informative, very, very positive. I just wanted to start with some things that have been happening in my house with my daughters. You will see the most popular programme that's been on TV, British Bake. What a delight it was to watch with my daughters. And when I mentioned this before, people said, "Oh, you're only talking about daughters." I'm only blessed with daughters, so we have no fighting in our house. Everybody was going to watch this programme, British Bake. And what you got is some fantastic individuals who were taking place. Nadia was for me the start right from the beginning. Thank you. And if you look at, I'm just trying to get. I'm just conscious if I keep doing that, so I might get a picture of me with that sign. So if I do this, it's changed. Something you'll be able to change it, right? Okay. I'm just talking now. It's always very, very difficult being an ex-police officer. People have that stereotype image about when you raise that arm. So. All right. Okay, there we are. So we've got Mel and Sue, Mary and Paul. Great start. Now you think that's a huge success story. Now the reason why I mention it, because it should have been a huge success story. Nadia was an absolutely fantastic individual. It was a great programme. It had huge audiences. But let's see how the Daily Mail reported this. So the Daily Mail columnist Amanda Littell basically says, so I'm making who do I wave to? Sorry. Right. Okay. She suggested that what this series of the Great British Bake Off began, the BBC was proud it was the most inclusive, multicultural lineup ever. Now we're down to the final three. It is certainly a PC triumph. We are left with a Muslim mum, Nadia Hussain, a gay doctor, Tamal Ray, a new man, Ian Cummings. Poor Flora Sheridan, who never stood a chance. She was far too middle class and was booted off this week after a chocolate carousel was deemed substandard. Actually, I didn't think it was very good, actually. I'm going next to it, obviously. Perhaps if she'd made the chocolate mosque, she'd have stood a better chance. That was the kind of information that you had from the Daily Mail. She goes on to say that this is a really PC gone bad. But then you get Twitter getting involved. So what does Twitter say? Somebody says, England is a joke. I'm watching they're not very good at spelling. I don't know if you can see the next slide. But they're not very good at spelling. I'm watching the great as in fireplace, British Bake Off. And one of those Muslim women just won best cake. What happened to this country? Another person tweeted, typical BBC, ticking all the ethnic boxes, got a Muslim on the Great British Bake Off. And they weren't alone. There's lots of very, very nasty, unpleasant comments, much more unpleasant than that. And I just mentioned that's the context of where we live in. So even when you have something like the British Bake Off, I just ask how many people watched it? Right. It was amazing. Sort of, noticed in the middle, I was perhaps one of the few middle-aged men that watched it, so why have these speech Dr. Stilger about he's having it on TV. So it's a great programme, but if you look at how that was portrayed, it should have been a huge success where Muslim wearing hijab suddenly became something where the Muslims are taking over, isn't it shocking? But if you actually go forward, and I was very, very proud of being a police officer. I've been retired almost 3 years, despite my youthful look, so I joined when I was 10. And one of the key things about policing was that it's a great profession. I would encourage people to join it. You get such a great opportunity to do lots of different things. And when Robert Peel introduced the police service, Metropolitan Police, in September 1879, he said something very important. The public are the police of the public. And that is perhaps the most key phrase of policing. Ironically, if you look at London, 1 in 8 of London's population are Muslim. Unfortunately, we don't reflect that diversity in our police service. So across the country, we have 5% of our officers are from minority backgrounds. And so what we need to be doing is encouraging our young people to join. But we also need to be monitoring what happens, because when we have individuals wanting to join, we need to ensure that they get every single opportunity when they're in the organisation. And this isn't just about being nice, this is because we want to reflect, we want to do our share as Muslims, as non-Muslims, we want to do our share in making sure that our communities are kept safe. There's a few other things that the traditions that Robert Peel said over 150 years ago, which are still true. The police are the public, and the tradition of the police are the public and the public are the police is for a very good reason. And it's incumbent on every citizen to police. Some are given that full-time role. And I think what we have here is, many years on, the same principles still apply. Because if we don't actually have the community involved in policing, in helping us to keep safe, then we lose that legitimacy. And the cooperation of the public is absolutely essential. We need to be ensured, and this is what Peel said this all those years ago, he says, to seek to preserve public favour, not by pandering to public opinion. So at times it means standing up against the Daily Mail and the right-wing press. And we've heard virtually every speaker we've had so far has talked about the impact of the media. We need to be much more proactive in ensuring that we are saying positive things on Twitter, we are challenging the right-wing newspapers. I was guilty as everybody else. I didn't write to the Daily Mail and said, well, that's shocking what you said with your columnist. But actually what we perhaps need to be doing is actually taking that initiative and actually challenging some of the kind of negative comments that were made. As we have the new legislation, I'm just conscious of my time, going over time, so I'm going to rush through the next bit. Just in terms of the new legislation we've got, is that it's important that we don't condemn every bit of new legislation. So, for example, some of the new legislation talks about seizing passports. Actually, on occasion, that may not be a bad thing. If we have some concerns about some of our young people, if they're being radicalised, we need to be seizing, making sure that they can't travel. And we need to be honest. The figures I had was that 400 people have gone to Syria. Keith talked about 700. We don't know what the exact figure is, but we need to acknowledge that it is happening, and we need to do absolutely everything in terms of working with the authorities to make sure that that doesn't happen. The powers of passport seizure have been extended. We don't have the data to say how many passports have been seized. We don't know how often Schedule 7 is being used. Schedule 7 may be used in a positive way in terms of safeguarding, but we need to have the data to understand that. The new legislation also talks about restricting individuals' travel. It's providing now puts a duty on insurance companies not to pay out money if they are going to be that money to be paid to terrorist organisations. So there's a whole range of things. And the prevent duty, we've heard from some of our previous speakers, prevent duty is now a mandatory requirement across a lot of organisations. Prevent is a problem. And the four strands prevent is the one that most people have concerns about. And what we need to be doing is making sure that prevent is for the people, by the people, and actually has the trust of the people. And unfortunately, we are not in that position. And we need to be very, very honest. So, in summary, do we have a challenge? Yes. We can't ignore the fact that we do have a challenge. Some of it within our community, some people will misrepresent Islam, but we nevertheless have a problem. Those of us that have had dealings with extremist groups, Al-Mujahideen, Al-Qaeda, will be aware of how vociferous individuals can be, and we've heard from Ricard earlier on about Anjum Chowdhury. Those are the individuals, unfortunately, that get the airtime, but actually don't represent anybody. We need to make sure that we are presenting ourselves forward to make sure that people have an understanding of the real world. In terms of preventing channel, yes, there is a lack of trust, and we need to ask the government to review it. Keith values very, very strongly what he said. He says, I would start again. And I think it's very, very interesting in terms of prevent where we are and where we are in terms of that lack of trust. Now, prevent cannot work if the community aren't on board, and that's the position we're in. And why has there been that element of lack of trust? Well, there's some concerns about what happened in Alan Rock, where funding for prevent was used to buy cameras, CCTV cameras, and people will continually talk about that. Now, whether those cameras were bought in for crime prevention or whether they were bought for spying, the fact that we use prevent money has caused a lot of difficulties in the community. The youngest person to be recommended for the channel project is a 3-year-old child, and you do wonder how effective putting a 3-year-old child into some kind of scheme like that is. So what are the solutions? Because I think it's very, very important that we look at some of the solutions. And we need a more representative police service, but we need a more representative secret service to make sure that the services are representatives of the communities that they protect. We need greater engagement and inclusion. We need to have more mainstream safeguarding, because Channel seems to have safeguarded Muslims separately. What we need to do is a mainstream safeguarding. We need to have effective training around social media, and we need to have better and more effective signposts. Sorry, I had to rush the end, I'm just very conscious of